Hello, you amazing hackers. This is the Rat speaking. Today I have John Hammond with me. Great having you here, man. Could you please introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really excited about this. This should be a good time. So, hello. Yeah, my name's John Hammond. I have a silly YouTube channel where I like to showcase a lot of cybersecurity or capture the flag videos and guides and walkthroughs, a little bit of programming tutorials here and there, but that's all for fun. It's kind of a passion and a side project for my day job. I do some work with the United States, kind of the Department of Defense, their training academy, cybersecurity, kind of teaching military members stuff on the keyboard, being an operator, and a lot of cool stuff like that. So,
Wow, that's really interesting, man. I've read your profile and your website, and seems really interesting. I'm
oh, thanks.
personally I haven't been in this field for long, so I don't know a whole lot. But I one of the things that I wanted to do is the NSA one time. So we'll see if
Ooh.
we'll see if that dream comes true if they ever do a bug bounty. I have a
Oh,
few questions
absolutely.
for you. So a lot of my viewers, they are aspiring to be OSCP students, and I know you're an OSCP certificate holder as well. So congratulations on that. I was wondering what your opinion is on websites like tryhackme and Hack the Box for preparing for the PWK course.
Yeah, absolutely. When a lot of people ask me about like how to prepare for OSCP or even any certification, I guess that kind of advice goes through all of it. Obviously, the course itself, because offensive security or whatever certifying body is going to provide a ton of PDFs and course material and videos and guides that should absolutely kind of be like your first go to. Like that's the staple is the training and the course itself. When a lot of people ask for like, hey, can I get other exercises or other practice, then I definitely point people towards Hack the Box and tryhackme. Hack the Box is fantastic because a lot of it is very OSCP like, where they'll just give you an IP address and say, go, like hack into it, do whatever you can, no guidance, no holding your hand, just root the machine. And TJ Null, or one of the community managers over at Offensive Security, has like a charted out list and a guidebook of like, these are the Hack the Box machines that are very OSCP like for Windows, for Linux, for any kind of difficulty. And those are really, really awesome to just, hey, grab that resource, check that list, and go one after the other. That's super duper helpful. I really, really like tryhackme. People that I guess know my stuff probably feel that all the time because I showcase a lot of their good stuff. But theirs is much more guided and hand-holding. We'll have steps and tasks that will walk you through a procedure. And that way you get a lot of learning because it's teaching you. It's not just, okay, you're on your own, go see what you can find. But it's like, this is what you can do. This is an outlet. Try this technique. And that's super duper great for your learning. They have a path or OSCP learning path that takes different rooms or their exercises, their virtual machines to break into, and puts it in a cool curriculum where you're like, hey, one step at a time, learning each individual thing. So I really, really like tryhackme for that. Absolutely. I definitely pitch tryhackme and Hack the Box for prepping for your OSCP and any other certification.
That's really interesting because when I took my OSCP, all I did was took the Hack the Box path, but I did it when my lab time ran out, so I don't really have advice for the viewers on that. But I didn't even know that tryhackme gave you all of these steps in the OSCP preparation list. That's really interesting. You're
Yeah.
OSCP certified. I am as well, and I want to take some other certifications like capturing the perimeter, for example. That's probably next on my list. Do you have any recommendations for preparing for that?
Oh yeah. So I totally agree with you in that kind of trajectory. Like after OSCP, next on the list in kind of offensive security's gauntlet is OSCE, or that cracking the perimeter course, kind of like you mentioned. But that one is much more binary exploitation oriented and much more like in the weeds assembly, working through a debugger, crafting shellcode, etc. So the course for that one is good, but their lab environment is a little lackluster. They kind of just give you some machines and don't set a whole lot up for you to beat up against. They just give you the tools that you might work with. So what I used for practice for OSCE and cracking the perimeter is Vuln server. And you can find that on GitHub, but it's a Windows executable that'll act as kind of like a network service. It'll open up a socket and you can connect on that port, and there'll be a lot of like command line functions that you can call or commands that you can run. But each of them has their own vulnerability in that command. So it's not an actual program. It's just for the case of learning and sharpening your skill in that Windows binary exploitation. But it'll get into doing an SEH or a structured exception handler override and exploit. It'll get into using an egg hunter. It'll get into if you want to do some encoded or sub-encoded shellcode, you can do that. And that's awesome, because if you work through a lot of the Vuln server functions, then you pretty much like you're building out your toolkit and your whole arsenal for OSCE when you take the CTP exam. So I would absolutely advocate for checking out Vuln server and trying to automate some of your techniques for sub-encoding your shellcode.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. That's one of the things I'm most afraid of, actually. It's writing your own shellcode. That sounds so intimidating to me. It's one of the things
what they'll throw at you for writing your own shellcode isn't extremely like bewildering and mind-blowing, as long as you kind of understand setting up a stack frame, like getting the function prologue and epilogue in place, and then being able to set up arguments so you have regular calling conventions so you can call a function. That is kind of the bare bone basics that you'll ask you to do, but they'll ask for like, can you do this XOR like bypass to get rid of antivirus evasion, stuff like that, or trying to mix in for just alphanumeric characters because there'll be limitations on the bytes of the characters you can use. But Vuln server will do a great job showcasing some of those tricks and stretching you and how you can mitigate and evade those. So it's cool. It's really cool.
That's really interesting. I was really doubting between capturing the perimeter and OSWE. So because I'm mostly a bug bounty hunter as well, and that's why I would like to do the web stuff. But I was thinking maybe capturing parameter is more interesting to get a more in-depth knowledge of the shell coding and that kind of stuff. But in bug bounty hunting, I've noticed that you don't really use all of that stuff. You just try to find a vulnerability, and if you have like foothold, you don't go for privilege escalation. So I'm still on the fence about that, but we'll see. And one of the things I've noticed about OSWE as well, OSWE, sorry, is a lot of programming, a lot of automation is very useful, especially if you keep trying to look for the same vulnerabilities. I use Python to automate all of my stuff. I really enjoy Python. I read on your website that you enjoy Python as well. It's your weapon of choice. What modules would you recommend for hacking with Python? Do you have any that you...
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is cool because there's a lot of stuff to kind of unpack there. And I want to touch on kind of a lot of the stuff that you said. I ran through OSWE as well. So I want to tackle that first just to kind of touch on it for a little bit. It's great. It is kind of pigeonholed into two different kind of technologies though, because they focus a lot on .NET assemblies like ASPX and ASP websites. So kind of the Windows stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the code that they'll give you and the stuff that you do with OSWE is that it's a different like mindset, right? Normally you're doing like a very black box penetration testing stuff for all of the OS on offensive security certifications. This one kind of turns out on its head. With OSWE, they give you the source code. They give you everything that website is using to work with. And okay, now you've got like a white box problem and it's a giant code review and source code audit. It's a whole different game. So it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, trying to find the vulnerability and then be able to exploit it. But .NET is a big one. They talk a lot about Node, some of the JavaScript stuff, Node.js and getting an Express server set up. But those are kind of the real big focus points for OSWE. And I mean, like you said, Python or whatever your scripting language of choice is absolutely like going to be like your sword, your weapon to go ahead and work through it. So when I use Python, and that is, my weapon of choice, that's like my knee-jerk reaction when I want to whip something up, that I'm always using the requests module. I'm always using, so like web requests, right? HTTP post and get and all that. And that's awesome for automating my interaction with a web page or trying to craft some specific SQL injection or cross-site scripting attack. Binasky and base64 for regular, just encoding and decoding of stuff. And obviously like pwn tools, right? Whenever you're trying to automate connecting to a network socket or a service, pwn template, just the command line thing to quick whip up a little, let me interact with this service. I've got a local copy of the binary if it's a binary thing. That is fantastic. And pwn tools is definitely one of the ones that I use. There are a lot of others, I guess. It's super duper niche depending on the stuff that you want to do, because I like to use PyEnchant, which is like a good English dictionary or kind of natural language processing thing. What else is there? Yeah, requests, so much, right? Pwn tools are the absolute big ones. Yeah, Python's huge. And I want to get into other languages that do that really well as well, like Go, one of the Google languages. Like it sounds like it has as much support and as much libraries and module use cases as Python, and it's even like faster.
Yeah,
so I want to get into some of that.
The GoBuster tool, it's amazing for brute forcing directly.
Oh yeah,
I've never seen something do it so fast. Before I used to do dirbuster and that kind of stuff, but GoBuster is super fast, and I was really surprised at how fast Golang is. Really. I wanted to ask you a question about OSWE as well. Do you think it reflects reality since you have some actual pen testing experience? Because one of the comments that I get a lot is that OSCP and all of the offsec courses are a little bit out of date compared to what's out there in the wild.
Yeah.
I've seen stuff like during my OSCP, for example, I've done my buffer overflow just like everybody else, and there was no ASLR, there was no memory protection, nothing. I know that that's not going to happen in the wild, and I understand that it's good to get the basics, of course, right. That's why they teach you, of course, and to get you into the field. But I would have liked some more like they're doing right now with the OSCP course. They're renewing the Active Directory modules and that kind of stuff. They're putting them into the syllabus. And I don't know if OSWE has the same problem, because the web technologies these days, like you said, Node.js and that kind of stuff is emerging more and more. Angular. I don't know if they represent it enough to make it actually representative of reality. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. It's funny. It's like a dangerous question for me, right? So like as a content creator, or whatever stupid persona I have on the internet or whatever, obviously I feel like there are a lot of people that will kind of look at me and question and think about what am I thinking. And when I look at all the different certifications that are out there, I try to have as unbiased and as non-discriminatory. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone or saying one sucks or one is good or one's great. So it's funny, when I went through the OSCP 2020 review, when I saw the email that this new thing is out, I'm really excited about it. The whole update that a ton of people have been asking for. I remember I got a message that said like, hey, our offensive security executives are watching your video right now, and I'm like, oh geez, wow. I hope I don't say anything bad. Yeah, and I mean, I love it. It's fantastic. It's super cool to get that visibility. But I also don't want to be throwing shade one way or the other. And I have tried to put out the stance. I'm just a surveyor. I'm just a dude. I'm a guy in the community, and I want to be learning and growing as much as everyone else does. So I really like to look at all the different certifications and kind of weigh and I don't know, find the pros and cons of each. So to actually answer your question, sorry, with that disclaimer out of the way, what they did with OSCP, updating it is awesome. I love the fact that I put some Active Directory stuff in there, a little bit more into Bash and scripting. And it's weird to me that they haven't changed the exam or updated the actual test yet to reflect that, but I'm sure that's coming. I know that's probably a priority for OffSec. OSCE, cracking the perimeter, you hear all the time. People are saying like, man, this course is ancient, it's archaic, it's almost dead and long gone because it still ships with backtrack, not even Kali. And yeah, the XOR stub to bypass antivirus or some of the SEH or egg hunter techniques would not work in real world modern stuff. I'm okay with that because they say like, hey, you gotta learn to walk before you can run. And just like you said, man, we got to start with the foundations. And I think that is absolutely correct and totally on point. OSWE, well, before I shift, I know OSCE, they say we are going to be bringing out an update. We are going to be bringing out a total refresh to make it a more kind of modern course as we get closer to it. OSWE, on the web side of the house, I feel like they're doing a really good job. I think that .NET stuff is totally prevalent because Windows is like everywhere, man. Same thing with Node, like Node, and that's growing, and a lot of the Express and sort of their asynchronous HTTP requests and callbacks and stuff they do with the Axios framework. That's real, in my opinion. I think that's growing and even more so prevalent. So maybe I'm wrong. Again, just a surveyor, just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think we're really in a privileged position where we're on YouTube, we can learn a lot, we can do this stuff while making videos and having fun. So for me, it's really, like you said, it's about getting the foundation right before you start learning how to run. And I also, I was wondering, how much time do you actually spend learning new things versus putting them into practice? Because of course you can do it in your job. You're privileged enough to do this as your job. I'm not at the moment. I'm a software tester by day job, so I have to balance my time really well. Do you have any recommendations for people like me that don't get to spend their day pen testing?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, it's a tough question, right? Because how much time do I spend learning new things versus putting them into practice? I feel like a lot of it is, it's tough. It's a crappy answer, but it's like you learn as you go. Because if you see some new technology, if you find some software or some endpoint that you've never kind of heard of that software before, you don't know that version number, you don't know if that's vulnerable, you don't know the inner working kinks of it and all. A lot of times that's just quick Googling, quick Stack Overflow, quick research. And that means maybe the time that you spend learning versus to actually putting into practice is like 3 or 4 hours, maybe, if that's what you're doing. If you're trying to learn a new skill, or if you're trying to just get smart on something that's a super duper broad topic, like, okay, Active Directory, LDAP, and Windows oriented stuff. Holy cow, man. If you want to get smart on that, that could take you maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. It's totally your call. And if you kind of have the flexibility to, I don't know, get smart on it before you start to go do something with it, before you're performing a Windows pen test or before you're doing whatever bug bounty target that you'd like, you can choose. How much do I spend? A lot of my learning, truth be told, a lot of my learning comes from Capture the Flag because it's the gamified like exercises and play that I get to do. That's a ton of fun and also still helps us grow. So that's normally quick. That's like, hey, I'm going to research this thing. I'm going to get maybe an hour or 2 hours just to learn and get smart on it. And then let's see if I can beat it up. If I'm taking a course, if I'm trying to take my time, then yeah, maybe that's a week or a month. Who knows? So I guess that's it. I don't know. I don't have a good answer. I feel bad.
No, it's a really good answer actually, because like you said, you divide people up into groups of people that it really depends on your knowledge as well. How deeply do you want to go into a topic? How much do you want to learn about that specific topic? And I guess it also depends a little bit about motivation, like how badly do you want to learn this topic? Do you want to exploit this really deeply? Or like in cross-site scripting, I really like cross-site scripting. You probably noticed already from my channel name.
Oh, yeah.
But in cross-site scripting, you have your basic cross-site scripting, your stored, reflected. You have DOM cross-site scripting, which is really hard to find. Then you have your web application filters that you can go behind. You have all this kind of stuff, and it's really hard for me to, like you say, when do I put in time to actually go bug bounty hunting, and how much time do I put into researching all of these techniques? But I guess a lot of it comes from actually just doing it and coming against the problem and seeing how I can solve that particular issue. So it's like I said, a little bit about motivation, a little bit about how much you want to know. So thank you very much. Really interesting answer. Now, I have another question that maybe is a little bit more personal. What got you into pen testing? What was your motivation?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I guess I like, you know how every kid wants to be like, oh, I want to be a game developer. I want to make games. I want to make video games. Or they're like, oh, I want to be a hacker. I want to be a cool, I don't know, controlling computers, doing whatever I want. I got superpowers sort of thing. So I guess when I was growing up, when I was in like high school and maybe a little before then, I wanted to first learn like how to program, right? I wanted to do the creative kid thing. I want to make games. So my dad taught me HTML, and then I kind of like learned Linux. Well, I was like, I want to host a website. I want to make a website. So I learned HTML from my dad, which is awesome, bless his heart. And then I was like, I want to put this out on the internet. So I want a server. And he got me like a brick of a computer, like an old Dell Optiplex or something. I have no idea if that's the old model or not. But I needed to like, hey, if I want to host this thing, I'm going to need to learn Apache, which normally runs on Linux. So I need to learn Linux. And that once I guess I got a little bit smarter in Linux, that like opened the floodgates, right? Like that's where it all comes piling in, because now you've got all these built-in programming languages that let you do cool stuff. And then I was like, well, if I'm learning Linux, I guess I can learn a little bit more. So I found Eric S. Raymond's blog. You know, when you're like learning about the beginnings of Linux, you look at like Richard Stallman and Linus Torvalds and Eric S. Raymond and all that. So I found Eric S. Raymond's blog that said, like, if you want to be a hacker, you need to know Python. Maybe that's still out there. And that was what I did. I found the New Boston YouTube channel, and that had a ton of tutorials on learning Python. And I really just kind of used that for development and for creation and for making things. It wasn't until I kind of got into like the college military side where there was a competition that was, hey, it's all cyber stakes. It's all the different service academies over in the United States putting together some of their cadets and their midshipmen to test some cybersecurity skills. And I went ahead and played like as a freshman, and that seemingly, I don't know, I guess I did well enough that like the instructors, the faculty was like, cool, let's bring this kid along to the live event. It's over in, I guess it was like Pennsylvania or something. And it was a live in-person capture the flag hacking competition. It was like, this is super fun. This is super cool. And that's totally capture the flag. So starting to leak into the cybersecurity scene, the penetration testing stuff. And a lot of it, yes, you can couple capture the flag with pen testing, and sometimes yes, sometimes no, but they can go hand in hand, right? Because it's all about learning technology and different software and vulnerabilities and stuff like that. So that was what kickstarted it, maybe like 5 years ago. A transition from the software development, creating things, making things, to the cybersecurity, poking at things and picking at things and breaking things. So that was how that transition was for me.
Yeah, I always say I have a talent for breaking things, an extraordinary talent for breaking things. And I think most hackers do. It's really interesting also that you mentioned capture the flags, because a lot of people have asked me, do you think capture the flags are worth it to learn hacking? And to them, I often say, yes, of course, you're learning logical things, you're learning thinking, you're learning all these kinds of new technologies. And yes, maybe you won't need stenography in your next assignment, but you'll learn the logical thinking skills required to solve those puzzles. And in real life, one thing I've noticed about capture the flags, and that is something I don't like about them, is that they're mostly bare bones assignments, really straightforward, do X, get Y. And for me, in a real life pen test environment, you often get all of these convoluted servers and a giant network map and all of this stuff, and it's really hard to find the things that you need to focus on for me. Do you have any tips regarding how when you have this giant Nmap scan with 60 ports open, How do you select one to start?
Yeah. Okay. Some cool things to touch on and all that. I'll if I can, I could talk about the CTF stuff first, how it compares to real, and then move into the giant rabbit hole. How do you avoid rabbit holes? Yeah, so it's funny. Live Overflow, another YouTube channel, put out a video some time ago. 2 videos. It was like one that's CTFs are terrible, and the other one was CTFs are awesome. Just these juxtaposing, like contrasting ideas, because both are totally right. Sometimes, maybe. If the CTF is very, like you said, steganography or guessing or just trying to figure out whatever the challenge author was thinking, it's a nerd puzzle, right? And sometimes that's annoying. And sometimes it's very guessy and not fun and not a lot of learning comes from it. If it's a toy, if it's a puzzle, then yeah, we don't like that CTF. That's not as cool. If it's more real world, like, hey, we're going to showcase a real vulnerability and a real exploit, and you're going to get, it's almost maybe the boot to root or some of the hack quest capture flags that are much more fun, where you're doing real stuff on the command line or throwing some privilege escalation technique or throwing some real CVE and exploit vulnerability out there. That is very cool, and I think that ties really well into real life, real world stuff. So you can choose what CTFs do you like and fit well to the work that you do, or if it's a cheesy, stupid puzzle, maybe not so much. Your greater question, how do you avoid, or what do you do when you have Nmap results with like 600 lines of ports, whatever, a giant thing to be up against? Yeah, that I think is when you want to step back and work slow, like move slowly. They say, oh, enumerate. People hate that answer, but it's totally kind of the most common and actual answer. Is it like, if you were to dive real deep on this thing, you might have found, hey, there's some authenticated access to one of the Samba shares that was visible, or there's some weird thing that LDAP will let you in, or maybe there's anonymous access on some FTP thing, or who knows? Those are all stupid, cheesy examples, but it's good to have a checklist. I think I've seen the 0-day security blog has an awesome, like, line by line, here's every single port that we know of, and that you can do some enumeration, some testing on that. And how do you go and choose one? What do you start with? That's totally your call. Like, that's if you are more comfortable, like, let me see what this FTP server has, what tricks is that holding, or maybe LDAP or some of the other examples that I listed. Where do you start? It's totally where do you want to start, and how much time do you want to invest in that first? Because if you're super sharp on this, wow, I can mount all these NFS shares for days, go do that. Or if it's something you aren't so smart on, you need to learn a little bit more and do some research. If you want to save that time investment for later, or do that right now, totally your call, but you got to be knowing, like, okay, this is going to take a little bit of time because I have so much to work through. Go slow. There's nothing wrong with that. Enumerate.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why I also gravitate towards port 80 always. When I see it open, port 80, I always go for port 80, partly because there's a giant attack surface. You can have a lot of things on there. But also because, of course, it's my preference. I really like web application hacking, so that's one of the things I'll go for first. Speaking of vulnerabilities, have you found any 0 days that you can disclose with us?
Oh, geez. No, like, full disclaimer, I have not. I haven't spent as much time doing cool cutting-edge research as I really should be. Like, I'd love to have a CVE to my name or something cool. I haven't done it yet. From what I understand, like, chatting with other people, they say, like, literally just go to GitHub and type in, like, something that runs on Node. And they say, like, there's tons of bugs there. You could find them if you wanted to. I'd like to make time for that. Right now, I still am focusing on training and growing kind of the content that I put out there and helping other people learn and grow too. So I'd love to do it. I want to make more time for it. One thing that I am excited about, I signed up for OSEE, the high tier advanced Windows exploitation from offensive security, like one of their big flagship tests and courses that's only kind of put on at Black Hat over in Las Vegas alongside DEF CON and besides Las Vegas and Hacker Summer Camp. But hey, the state of the world right now, that kind of got canceled. They were going to go online, but they can't do that course online. So they'll do that, I think, next year. And hopefully I've got a seat slotted for that next year. But that gets into much more, Windows kernel fuzzing and kind of exploits in that realm. I need to get a lot smarter on that. But I think when I look at some of the smart people that are working in that, Hombre, I don't know if I pronounce his name right. He has a blog and a ton of stuff for OSCE for cracking the perimeter. But now that him and some of the others in the Twitterverse are looking at OSCE and like these Windows kernel exploits, they're finding like 0 days, like one after another, actual security exploits. I'm like, that looks super cool. I want to get smart on that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a matter of making time for it. Life gets in the way. It's time.
Yeah, I've been trying to get into some HTML5 research with cross-site scripting, with the canvas and all the animations and that kind of stuff. It's all brand new kind of
cool
stuff, but it's not easy, like you say. You have to make time, and growing the YouTube channel is almost a full-time job in and of itself. So,
Oh yeah.
one more question I have for you, a little bit technical. Do you hack behind a VPN? A lot of people have asked me this. Do you hack behind a VPN? And sometimes I don't know what I should tell them.
Yeah. Oh man, my answer kind of sucks because a lot of the stuff that I do is very academia and education oriented, right? So obviously, Hack the Box or tryhackme is going to give you a VPN key to move into to get into their network. For some of the real world stuff that I did. And another job, a red team like cyber operator thing. It was a lot of talk, which was kind of a bummer. It wasn't as many real cool, like high flying ops or cool stuff that I would have liked. And it would kind of vary on what the customer wanted or like what the client wanted. If I'm doing a real bug bounty thing, and admittedly, I haven't done as much bug bounty because I'm just not in that world yet. But the web and mobile stuff all looks super cool. I think I would probably, if given if I had some smarter infrastructure and something set up, I wouldn't want to use like a NordVPN or ExpressVPN and not to badger them or anything. But I would probably try and get maybe a DigitalOcean or an AWS instance. Like I'll just use this as kind of a redirector or some anonymizer. Maybe even that would, I don't know, maybe that would put me in like that DigitalOcean account's probably going to be tied to an account. So maybe that wouldn't put the anonymity that I want. Who knows? I guess I could, if I would, I could, but I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that one either.
No, it's a really good answer actually, because you're tying it to anonymity, and that's really interesting because I would, when I use a VPN, I usually tie it to not being IP banned. I hack all kinds of stuff, and there are all kinds of web application filters that love to IP ban me. So I just use a VPN to avoid that kind of stuff.
That's a good call. That's a really good call. Yeah. And I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about Tor and the dark web and the dark net and all that. I right now, I just tend to kind of avoid that, like personally. Yeah. Maybe if I kind of get into another role or another position that needs to go in those weird crevices of the internet, for the stuff I'm doing kind of at the moment, I just don't touch it. So
yeah. All right. Thank you very much. So that's about all I have time for. I would like to thank you very much for your time. This was truly a pleasure to meet you. You've been my hero for a long time, so now I finally get to talk to you. All right. I hope I'll see you sometime soon, and see you later. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Take care, guys. Appreciate it.